You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Ryan Tejas is here.
Hola.
Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, too.
It's Halloween.
It is Halloween.
It's Halloween.
It is Halloween.
You can feel it. You go to horror movies and pumpkins and trick-or-treating. And I might be a little too old for trick-or-treating.
You?
Probably.
No.
But I've been watching some horror movies. We're watching more than ever because it's the holiday season. A lot of bad ones, but I did see a good one. And I saw one called Smile, and I really enjoyed it. And guess what? I got both the leads of that movie to come next week. So we will see them next week. Kyle Gallner and Sosie Bacon. Yeah.
They were just here.
Yeah. And I had no idea at all because I looked her up after, and it was Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick's daughter.
Isn't that
Didn't
fun?
know.
Isn't that fun?
Very pretty, bright, fun, eccentric, talented actress. She nailed it. Anyway, another awesome person that you're about to listen to. If those of you who listen to the podcast and don't, veer away when you don't know someone or, this guy is a legend. To me, he's a legend. To many people, he's a legend. His name is Tom Holland, not the actor Tom Holland. You can see Ryan is sitting right in front of my Fright Night poster. He signed it. You're so cool, Brewster. Tom Holland. He did Child's Play, created that and wrote that. He wrote Psycho 2, a ton of stuff. The guy has done some amazing work. We became friends. I played tennis with him before. I've gone on hikes with him. I love his wife. I got him to do the podcast. Actually, he called me, says, I want to talk about my new book, which sounds incredible. But you guys are going to dig that. I appreciate you listening and making this podcast the podcast you're listening to. It means the world to me, and it really helps out. Please write a review after the podcast is over, after you listen to it. Hopefully it will be a good review. And our socials, if you want to follow us, which helps, are
at Inside of You Pod on Twitter, at Inside of You Podcast on Instagram and Facebook.
You can watch on YouTube. You can listen anywhere. That'd be great. Go to the Inside of You online store. New merch. Great merch. Whole bunch of Smallville stuff, signed stuff, tumblers, coffee mugs, anything you can imagine. And of course, go to sunspin.com. Any minute we should have somewhere on that site with new Sunspin t-shirts for the band, new Sunspin mugs, Sunspin calendars, Sunspin CDs that are going to be for order available before they come out. So you might want to get on that. Go to sunspin.com. Keep checking. And you could also book us on a Zoom. You could also book us the band. So there's a lot of fun there. I think that's it. And of course, Patreon. If you don't know what Patreon is, they really support the podcast in more ways than one. I give them shout outs at the end of every episode. The top tiers, they get packages. More importantly, they keep the show alive. And I couldn't do the show without them. I always say that. So thank you all, patrons. Go to patreon.com/insideofyou, and I'll send you a message after you sign up. That is pretty much it. I can't wait for you guys to hear this podcast. I think Tom was a lot of fun. So, Ryan, did you enjoy Tom?
I love good old Hollywood stories. I love when the good veteran. I don't know much about them, but I know when the veterans come in, you're gonna get some stories.
Yeah,
and they're good,
great stories. And I was surprised by a lot of things, but we'll let you listen to it. Let's get inside of Tom Holland. It's my point of view. You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum was not recorded in front of a live studio audience. I can't believe I'm sitting here with the Tom Holland, not the English actor Tom Holland, folks, but Tom Holland, the gifted writer and director, also actor, now novelist. You're the first guest to actually sit in front of his poster. I think actually Kiefer Sutherland sat right in front of his Lost Boys poster, but you are sitting in front of one of my favorite movies of all time. It's Halloween. This is out Halloween, and this is the perfect time for it. But you directed and wrote one of my favorite movies of all time, and a lot of people feel this way. A lot. Fright Night.
Thank you.
I mean, it's one of those movies that you watch as when I was, I don't know, in my teens, and it's one of those movies that lasts. You could watch it again and again, and it still works. It's not like those movies that you watch and you're like, I remember Motel Hell being kind of scary, but I don't know, it's not that great anymore. But this is one that holds up. and you've had a long career. You've done a lot of stuff. You look at your resume and I'm like going, holy shit. Psycho 2 you wrote, which was a success. Child's Play created, wrote, directed, Langoliers, Fright Night, Thinner. It's just like, I mean, you're a legend. You know that, right? You know you're a legend. You're one of those big directors that people look up to. I
did not know it. It started about, I don't know, a long time ago, maybe even, 16, 17 years ago. Rob Galuzzo, if you know him.
Who's that?
He's a horror fan.
Right.
And he's the first one that appeared on my doorstep, knocking on my door because he was crazy in love with Psycho 2. And he ended up doing the documentary of Psycho 2. But that was the first inkling that I had that the movies that I had done decades previously still had a life and were appreciated.
Was this the way this guy showed up to your house?
He showed up with another friend of his from Long Island, and he wanted to do a documentary on Psycho 2. And he knew everything about it.
Really?
Yeah, but then we got into it, and he couldn't afford to get the photographs from the movie from Universal because they were so expensive to license.
Right.
And I had all the Polaroids that I'd taken on set. Me and Tony, me and Robert Loggia, me and Vera Miles, and I let him use them in the documentary for free.
Wait, you are like, it sounds to me, and I think I've been to your house a few times. We've been on hikes. I've seen your stuff. I love your wife. By the way, how's she doing? Is she doing a little better?
Yeah.
She is doing better.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's all right. That's all right. I love her. She's got an attitude on her.
Yeah, she's got an
She's
attitude
always
at
had
this
an
point.
attitude on her. I like her. But is this something that you always wanted to do? Were you fascinated by horror? I mean, I know you acted a little bit when you were younger, and you actually acted not too many years ago. But did you always did you like the macabre, the dark? Was that always in your mind? And what started all that?
Well, it's very, very hard to describe, Michael, because it was such a different time. When I was a horror fan before there were horror fans. I'm talking the late 50s. It's Stephen King's Growing Up. It's pretty much the same thing. It was EC Comics. If you look at his short stories, he's doing EC Comics. EC Comics was like 1955 or 56. Then they created such a furor that they were banned. And what happened, that of course made high school kids like me go absolutely crazy for EC Comics. And when they were banned, a small group, maybe 4 or 5 other guys, it was guys, not girls, in Austining Public High School, started trading EC Comics under the table.
And EC Comics was a horror kind of comic?
EC Comics is like Tales of the Crypt.
Oh, or like Fangoria.
Yeah, well, way before Fangoria. This is back in the late 50s. So horror was a hidden pleasure, or a dangerous pleasure. And the only horror movies that were around really, or what I grew up with, was Hammer and AIP. And AIP, American International, was ripping off Hammer.
Right.
But so I grew up with Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing,
Peter Cushing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had lunch with Christopher Lee once, believe it or not.
Really?
Just after he had finished Lord of the Rings. I ended up at Guy Green's house, invited. Guy Green won the Academy Award in 1947 or 48 for Great Expectations. He shot it.
Wow.
And there was a very active British community in Hollywood, and there has been since forever, David Niven, etc. And they had a big party for David Lean.
And Christopher Lee was there.
And Christopher Lee was there. And it was David Lean because he was doing the new print of Lawrence of Arabia, I think.
Right.
And so anybody in the British community was there, and I ended up at that table with my wife and Christopher Lee.
Were you starstruck?
Yes, but not as starstruck as I was when I ended up with Vincent Price.
Oh. You ended up with Vincent Price?
I ended up having dinner with Vincent Price and his wife. Was her name Coral Brown?
I don't
know. At Roddy McDowell's house.
Come on.
And Roddy did it because I had originally written Fright Night for Vincent Price. I thought he would play, Peter.
Right.
And well, that's why I'm Peter Vincent. Vincent Price and Peter Cushing. And I sat there and wanted to talk about all the great horror movies that Vincent Price had made. And all he wanted to talk about was art and the cookbook he just finished. So I couldn't get anything out of him.
Really?
No.
But just listening to that voice.
Yes.
Ghouls from every tomb are there to seal your doom. And even though you try to... You know who that is, right?
Yeah.
You know Vincent Price.
Yeah, that's the thing from Thriller.
He is. He was also in the Brady Bunch. But he did a lot of movies.
He was in the Brady Bunch?
He was in an episode of the Brady Bunch years ago.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I think they went to Hawaii, and Vincent Price was there, and he was kind of this eccentric character. But yeah, he was. But he also did Wax Museum, and
no, he could really act.
Oh man, he was great. He had such a presence.
Yes, but he could do character work too. If you go back and look at the movies in the 40s and the 50s, you could see him really working. Noir. He did noir films.
Right. Were your parents a little freaked out by the fact that you loved horror? Did you let it be known at a young age? Were they like going, Tom's a little different?
Yeah, no, exactly. They wrote a letter to... The first job I got was as a apprentice at Bucks County Playhouse in Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And the man who ran it was named Michael Ellis. And my parents wrote him a letter, which they kept. And they were saying, we think something's a little wrong with our son. He may be a little bit different. How is he doing as an apprentice at Bucks County Playhouse? Well, that was... What
did he say? Did he write back?
No, I didn't. I don't know what he said.
You don't know what he said?
All I saw was their letter, But
you were always in horror movies, like into seeing horror movies and reading these magazines and whatever. That was in your world at a young age.
Yes, but there wasn't a fan community out there. You were just really weird and one of a tiny minority. Yeah. And the other one was science fiction films. In the late 50s, you had the horror films, which were the Hammer films were highly saturated, the color,
right,
and the cutting and the way they shot them were very standard because they had great sets. They'd gotten these old houses in London. They shot in them. They always had a wide shot to show you how great the set was first.
Right.
And maybe you got to over the shoulders. You very seldom got a single. And I don't know if I ever saw an insert.
No inserts back then.
Yeah, no inserts back then.
Jesus.
Film didn't start to change till Breathless. Godard, who did jump cuts. I'd never seen a jump cut before in my life.
The MTV style started back then with him.
And that would be
60s?
No, late 50s, 1960. You have to look up Breathless and
Breathless,
see when
Ryan, look up Breathless.
With Jean-Paul Belmondo.
You know what's crazy is like you went to law school.
That's crazy.
But you aren't thinking of becoming a director or a writer really at this point when you're studying law, right?
I wasn't seriously studying law. I was an actor. I started working very, very young. I was under contract to Warner Brothers when I was 19. And I have been a member of SAG since, 1961.
How did you get a contract with Warner Brothers at 19?
I wanted to get into film. And when I had apprenticed at the Bucks County Playhouse, all they could tell me was various acting classes in New York. So what I started to do was I signed up for the HB studio on 21 Bank Street.
I went to HB
Did
studios
you really?
in New York in the 90s, mid-90s.
Uda Hagen, Herbert Bergdahl.
Yeah.
Okay.
For a year I went there, HB Studios.
Okay, so I did that in like before I went to my first year of college. And I got...
At Northwestern?
Northwestern, but right. I was in New York in that summer before, and that's when I started to get commercials. And then after my first freshman year at Northwestern, which didn't have a film school. But I became an actor because there was no way to get into film. There was no way to get to Hollywood or to learn how to make films. And I don't know, I was just desperate to get into film. And because there was no way in except acting, I became an actor.
Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp. I don't know what we do without BetterHelp. I have been lately dealing with a lot of anxiety, and what happens is I hyper focus on all these negative things, Ryan, that keep spiraling, and I can't. It's hard to focus. It exhausts me and gives me anxiety, and these thoughts kind of just. And I know it's not. I shouldn't be thinking all these things, and it's my mind. I can't put it to rest a lot of times, and it can be tough to train your brain to stay in problem solving mode, and especially when you're facing challenges in life. And I know that therapy helps that. Talking to someone and having them talk to you objectively about what works, trained professionals, helps. It just does. Doing it on my own isn't working. It's just not working. If I don't have someone to talk to, I will just continue to spiral. There's no way out. That's how I feel. Do you feel that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to talk to somebody.
People always say, well, how'd you get into therapy? It's because I just couldn't solve these problems on my own. I couldn't, you could say you're going to do these things and you're saying, what happens is you just bottle stuff up, folks. We just bottle things up until it becomes very toxic, and our body feels it physiologically. We feel the effects of, pain, depression, anxiety, and it takes a toll on your mind and your body. And that is why I got into therapy. And I'll tell you, a lot of times I have nothing to talk about. And for the first 5 minutes, I'm like, why am I here? What am I doing? And by the end of it, I'm like, thank God I'm talking to somebody. My Lord. Look, if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. Ryan here does BetterHelp. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapists any time. A lot of times people are selling things and there's ads you have to read. To me, this is the easiest read ever because it's just something I could talk about forever. And look, BetterHelp is a great place. It's a place to help a lot of people. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/inside today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/inside. Inside of You is brought to you by Freedom Grooming. Where were you, Freedom Grooming, when I was shaving my head every day on Smallville? I love you guys. These guys are terrific. They have the new Flex Series electric razor, and it's magnificent. Trust me on this one. At Freedom Grooming, we make the Flex Series electric shaver, which uniquely is designed to flex and contour to the curve of your head for a smoother, faster, and safer shave without the risks of nicks, cuts, irritations, or ingrowns.
Shave 50% more hair in a single stroke compared to traditional razors. Expect shave times of 2 to 3 minutes, not 10 to 15.
Never cut yourself shaving again. The Flex Series Safeguard technology means no nicks, no ingrown hairs, no problems. And the Flex Series waterproof design means you can shave in the shower with or without shaving cream, shave wet or shave dry.
Since even the sharpest blades dull with use, Freedom created the Close Shave Plan. With the Close Shave Plan, you'll never run out of fresh, sharp blades delivered to your door every 6 weeks with free shipping.
All active Close Shave Plan members are upgraded to a lifetime warranty, and it's completely customizable. Adjust, skip, or cancel your plan anytime, and we have over 10,000 5-star reviews. I have a buddy, Ryan, my friend Joe. He shaves his head. He's never felt anything like this. He's used to, I won't say the name of the brand, but he always cuts himself. He's always got little cuts and little bruises, nicks, and what have you. And this really works for him. I think people are always looking for something that really makes their life easier. And there's nothing worse than going to a restaurant with blood trickling down your head. So stop Deli slicing your scalp with traditional razors. Try Freedom today, or get it as a gift with your exclusive 20% off by going to freedomgrooming.com/inside. That's freedomgrooming.com/inside. Inside of You is brought to you by Shopify. We've talked about Shopify a lot, Ryan. I use Shopify. I've used it since the inception of this podcast. I used it for the other podcast, Talkville. Everybody I know who has a podcast or is in some kind of business uses Shopify. It doesn't have to be just for podcasts, but for your business, small business, big business, whatever you want. What I love is it's so easy to navigate. I mean, it's so simple. And you could keep track of what's selling the best, what's selling the least, how many product you have left. It's all right there for you. Contact your customers, give discounts. It's tremendously easy. And I love Shopify. Shopify makes it simple to sell to anyone from anywhere. Whether your thing is vintage teas or recipes for ghee, start selling with Shopify and join the platform simplifying commerce for millions of your favorite businesses worldwide.
With Shopify, you'll create an online store in your vibe, discover new customers, and grow the following that keeps them coming back.
Shopify has all the sales channels sorted so your business keeps growing, from an in-person POS system to an all-in-one commerce platform, even across social media platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram.
And thanks to 24/7 support and free libraries... full of educational content, Shopify's got you every step of the way.
It's how every minute new sellers around the world make their first sale with Shopify, and you will too.
When you're ready to launch your thing into the spotlight, do it with Shopify, the commerce platform backing millions of businesses down the street and around the globe.
Go on, try Shopify for free and start selling anywhere. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/inside, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/inside to start selling online today. Shopify.com/inside. And by the way, you're a good-looking man. You've always been a good-looking man. Do you think some of your looks helped you out a little bit too?
About 99.9%. Because I came into New York after my first year of college at Northwestern, and I got a 7-year contract at Warner Brothers. They flew me out here, and Jack Warner himself signed me.
What was it like? I mean, when your contract ended with Warner Brothers, what were you thinking? Like, what do I do now? Or am I going to still get work? Am I going to...
All that.
But what made your focus turn to directing or writing? Writing was really at first what started, right?
I got in the act. Well, I wanted to write from when I was 13. I had been trying to write short stories and then later novels, and I couldn't do it. Anyway, I got into the actor's studio down here on DeLongpre.
And you studied with Strasberg.
Oh God, I couldn't get rid of him. Yeah.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Wherever I ended up, he seemed to end up there. You do a 20-minute, you do a scene for 20 minutes, then he'd talk for 90. And my eyes crossed. And what year was this? It'd be like, I met Stuart Stern there in 67 through 70 or 71. I was in the actor's studio. And they had and I was working production and commercials, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I was making enough to keep going along with the acting jobs. It was pretty tight, depending on what month it was. Some months I had comparatively a lot of money, and some months I was dead broke. And I got in the actor's studio, and they had something called the Playwrights Wing. And they had screenwriters. And they wrote one-act plays, and they'd cast them out of the studio. And I got cast in a number of those one-act plays. And I met a number of aspiring screenwriters, working screenwriters. Jim Bridges and I became friends. I can't remember Carol Eastman, her brother. So
that's how you started getting really creative in writing. Started writing.
What was happening was I was doing these plays, and the directors would say, "Okay, cross here, or do this or that, or pick up here," and I was saying to myself, "No, you don't want to do that. It's better if you do this." And I became more and more aware that I had an instinct for directing, for staging, for making the scenes work. I can take a scene and put it on its feet, and I can get something out of it.
Right.
Somehow.
And you knew that inside yourself that, hey, I'm good. I know what I'm doing.
I started to discover it. And then I had people like Jim. Jim did the Paper Chase.
I like the Paper Chase.
Yeah, he leveraged himself into directing.
John Houseman.
Well, John Houseman was something else too.
Yeah. You met John Houseman?
Yes, through Stuart Stern.
I'm sorry, Mr. Holland. He almost was like a Hitchcock.
And I kept asking you about Orson Welles. All the things I've done.
Good.
But anyway, so I realized that I would like to direct. I couldn't get in through doing commercials. No, I could. I started to direct the really inexpensive children's toys commercials on the weekends. The
Tonka and shit?
No, bigger than that. But
Fisher Price? But you were directing commercials for kids that were airing on TV?
Yes. Yeah.
And were you making good money doing that?
No, but I was making a living. And everybody around me who was the people around me who were getting a chance to direct drama were doing it through being successful screenwriters and leveraging themselves into an opportunity to direct, most of which they could not do.
Right.
But some of them, like Jim Bridges, could. And that gave me hope. And I had, being a nice middle-class boy, which basically I am, lower middle class with aspirations to get solidly into the upper middle class, I started to write screenplays. And I went to I had been covering myself. I was compelled to get a college degree. My life has been spent in scene study classes. There's hardly anybody that I miss Sandy Meisner, but otherwise I studied with everybody. The best that I ever had, I thought, was, it'll come to me in a second. She was married to the group theater, Stella Adler.
Stella Adler.
Stella Adler was
Right.
hands down the best teacher that I ever had. And I know it's to say, it's almost apostasy to say this, but Lee Strasburg bored me to tears.
Bored you to shit.
Oh my God!
He just talked all the time.
Oh God! And it was all one way. It was all about somehow you becoming that character.
Right.
It was all inside. It was emotionally exhausting. Anyway, I was lost. I graduated my undergraduate at UCLA, and I looked around, and I had just gotten dropped from a pilot for a TV series, which I thought was going to change my life in Hollywood. And I felt, really rejected and really depressed, and it was hopeless. And what was I doing? I didn't have a degree. I wasn't trained for anything else. I'd have some weeks where I'd make a living, and I'd have some weeks where I was starving.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought I should get a college degree. It's what your mother says to you. Well, fine, but have something to fall back on.
Right.
And so I graduated, and I looked around, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea of being able to do anything except something to do with film. So I went to UCLA Law School. And I finished the first year, which is supposedly the most difficult, and I was bored to tears.
Yeah.
I mean, I had made a terrible mistake. A lot of things I might be able to do. I could do windows in a dress shop. I could help design a restaurant. I don't know. I mean, I could frame a picture. I could do a lot of things, but going through being an attorney and reading contracts and all of that was too much for me. But I started to I could not stop myself from being in love with film. I was at Greystoke, the Doheny Mansion, in the third year that AFI was in existence. And I was there as the legal liaison from UCLA. And all I did was go to the seminars, go to the talks by the various directors that came in. I was like I was a student at AFI. It wasn't like I was in the law. And I had people encouraging me to write screenplays.
Right.
And I started doing it. And you know something? I got better.
Inside of You is brought to you by First Alert. Did you know that a fire department responds to a fire every 23 seconds? October is Fire Prevention Month, and we have teamed up with First Alert, the most trusted brand in fire safety, to help protect your whole home with safety you can trust. Smoke and carbon monoxide alarms help provide an early warning in the event of home emergency. Having enough First Alert smoke and carbon monoxide alarms is one of the best things you can do for your home and for your family. Install alarms on every level and in every bedroom of your home. Now, once alarms are installed, it's important to maintain them by testing them regularly. Also, remember, alarms don't last forever and need to be replaced at least every 10 years. They are on duty 24/7. If you cannot remember the last time you replaced your alarm, it is best to replace the unit completely. Along with alarms, fire extinguishers are essential. Make sure to place fire extinguishers on every level and in common spaces like the kitchen, and know how to use them. For more information on fire safety products, safety tips, and educational activities you can do at home with your family, visit firstalert.com/fire prevention month. firstalert.com/fire prevention month. Inside of You is brought to you by Geico. Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance? Well, of course you would. After all, who doesn't love a great deal, right? And when it comes to great rates on insurance for all the things in your life, Geico can help. Like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners, condo, or renters coverage. You could save even more with a special discount when you bundle your coverages. Plus, add the easy-to-use Geico mobile app, available 24-hour roadside assistance, and more. And choosing to switch to Geico becomes an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save with great rates and discounts. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com to get a rate quote or contact your local agent and get started seeing how much you could save.
And I kept writing. I got a literary agent who was sending the material out. I took the bar, and I was waiting for the results of the bar, and I sold my first screenplay. And I was like, and I thought to myself, well, then I got the results of the bar, and I passed the bar.
Oh, wow.
So I was faced with the decision. I had sold one screenplay, and I have the copy of the check on the wall framed.
How much?
$1,500. It was more than I'd ever seen in one place for years.
$1,500 in
19, what would it be? Maybe 1973 or 4.
1974. So that's the most money you had ever seen.
Pretty much. So I had a choice to make in 1974 about whether or not I was going to be a lawyer or going to be a screenwriter. And I was so used to being poor and starving to death, and I knew that if I practiced law, I'd start to make a living. And one of the dangerous things about making a living is you start to live up to the level of whatever money you're making. At least I had that problem.
Right.
So I thought, well, I really would much rather get back into film. It's been my love all my life. And so I didn't practice law. I kept on writing screenplays. And I was working production once again in TV commercials, which is where it's one of the ways you get into making movies or television is through becoming a director of TV commercials, right. Even then.
Yeah.
And I worked for 5 years until the first one was Initiation of Sarah in 1977. It was a big TV movie.
Right.
It was quite a scandal. It was the first time that they tossed a girl in a fountain and she came out wearing a T-shirt and you saw her wet, hard nipples.
Jesus.
Oh my gosh! It was on the cover of the Sunday LA Times. That the Initiation of Sarah. Yeah, and then I got my first movie done.
The Beast Within?
Yes, and I wrote that in 1979. It was released in 1980, and it was a success. It made money, but nobody knew because it got buried in the wreckage of the bankruptcy of United Artists. And I spent a year out of work. Wow. An entire year where I didn't get a job. And then I was offered a property that nobody else in town wanted to touch because they were sure it was suicide.
Psycho 2.
Psycho 2.
So Universal asked you to write it. Did you have a pitch prepared for it?
No.
They just asked you to write it?
It was Richard Franklin, the director, the Australian director, who had the assignment. And he read a couple of screenplays of mine. And he really liked one called The Crystal Tower. And he had me in and we talked about Psycho 2. And I can't tell you how or why, but he chose me to write it. Now, nobody in town wanted to do it.
Oh, yeah. How do you touch it? It's a masterpiece. Probably one of the best horror movies in the history of cinema.
It is. It's the beginning.
Oh, yeah. It's the beginning of horror, really.
Yeah.
Real.
It's the first slasher that it was so much more than that, but everybody knew they were going to get ripped by the critics for having the temerity to try.
You can't win. It's a winless situation.
And on top of that, it was a cable movie. Oak Communications, look in the credits, you'll see it. And this was just as cable is coming in and just as VHS is coming in. And nobody wanted to do it, but Richard and I talked to you. I said, the only way you're going to get this made as a feature film is if you get Tony Perkins back to play Norman Bates. And Tony didn't want any part of it.
I read that. He didn't want any part of it until he read your script.
Well, then, so what I had to do was try to figure out how to make a piece of actor's bait that was so strong that a great movie star actor would say, I can't turn it down. And Tony blamed Psycho for ruining his career because he had been a romantic lead before that. Shenandoah Valley, they were all, he'd been a star on Broadway and Look Homeward Angel.
And then all of a sudden he did Psycho and everybody sees him as that.
And that really took the edge off of being a movie star and turned him more into a character actor. So he had very mixed feelings about it. But what I wrote was one of the great acting parts to come out in the horror genre. Because Norman starts out coming out of the mental institution and he's sane. And he's desperately trying to hold on to his sanity. And of course, the relatives of his victims come back to drive him mad. And at the end of the film, he kills his own mother and he's totally raving mad. So that is a hell of a character arc.
Right.
It was a real...
And it was a success. It was the number 2 movie behind Return of the Jedi that year.
That's right.
And that really put you on the map, didn't it?
That made me.
That made you.
That
They're
made me.
This guy did the impossible.
Yes.
Because without Psycho 2 being a success, they probably wouldn't have made any more.
You wouldn't have had the whole Psycho legacy.
The Psycho
You
legacy.
would have had none of it. I think there were 3 or 4 sequels to Psycho 2, and then they did at least 2 or 3 TV series.
Right.
And that last one was very good. Bates Motel.
Bates Motel was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, so,
But that, more importantly, got you the opportunity probably to direct, pretty soon after.
It gave me the visibility that if I wrote a few more scripts and they did well, that I was going to have a shot. And then I wrote Cloak and Dagger.
Which was a success.
Yeah, it was a success. I happen to love that script.
You wrote Class of 1984, which became a cult.
That became a cult hit, but at the time, that was we're once again you're in the horror genre, we're in the bottom of the basement. At that time, and we're back. What year am I in? We're in Psycho 2 is 1982.
Right.
So 1982 to 84 or 85 when I did Fright Night. I had a failure with Scream for Help, which is Michael Winner. I have stories about all these people. I had Cloak and Dagger. Richard Franklin directed that. And I had Class of '84. Mark Lester did a
Michael
brilliant
J. Fox was in that, right?
first movie.
First movie
he
Michael
ever
J.
did.
Fox did. Did you meet him?
No, I did not. I was
get to
not on
meet him.
location.
You
That
weren't on
was
location.
that was a Canadian tax shelter.
Of course.
But I mean, I think it's the best movie that Mark Lester ever did. I mean, that thing works, and the actors were all just terrific, and I think a few of them are directors now.
But during Cloak and Daggers, when you came up with the idea for Fright Night, right?
What happened was they came to me and they said, "We want to do a remake of The Window." The Window was the juvenile version by Cornell Woolrich of Rear Window. And Cornell Woolrich wrote both books.
Right.
And it is the quintessential boy who cried wolf story. And I said, you can't do this. This is just, I've seen this too many times. It's too thin. And that's when I came up with the imaginary character, Jack Fly. I wrote an original, basically. Cloak and Dagger's an original. And, but I said, if you really want to do a kid looking out the window and seeing a murder in the house next door, and you want to make it fresh and you want to make it appealing to your younger demographic, have a mad horror fan look out his window and see a vampire chomping down on the house next door. And everybody thought I was nuts. I mean, they all thought I was crazy.
Really? It's such a cool idea.
I went in and took a meeting at Universal, Tom Mount, I think, and I couldn't convince them. Everybody thought I was crazy. Now, you got to remember, that moment in time, vampires were, excuse the expression, dead. The most recent vampire movie was Love at First Bite with George Hamilton,
right,
which is farce.
Right.
When they start doing farce, it lets you know that the genre is dead. It's exhausted. It has to be reinvented.
Right.
It needs a breather. You see that with
sure. I see it all. You see it all the time.
See it all the time, and so I
You didn't give up.
No, I couldn't get the idea out of my head because it was so delicious.
Yeah.
And really, so I sat down. I couldn't think how to. I kept saying, "Well, what would Charlie Brewster do if he had a vampire next door? Well, who would he go to for help? Nobody's ever going to believe him." And then I thought of all those horror hosts that I had grown up with.
Oh yeah.
Vampira,
Vincent Price.
Well, they had. I grew up with what they called the Friday Night Frights. If you wanted to find a horror movie on TV back in the 60s, you had to go to Friday night, 11 o'clock on a local station, which would have the temerity to,
Right.
the guts to run one. And then you always had some horrible, tacky horror host.
Right.
And I mean, really, they did the sets with no money, flats falling down, people who were looking
But that's the only way people would know to watch this horror movie.
yeah. But
that's where the idea spawned.
Well, I said, well, that's
Peter Vincent.
If I was Charlie Brewster, I'd go to Peter Vincent. And when I had that, I couldn't get home fast enough to write. I mean, and I don't think I've ever had an writing experience like it because I was literally falling on the floor and screaming with laughter.
Really?
Yeah, and pounding my feet and my hands and saying, "This is so funny! I can't believe this." I mean, it was so ripe with, it was so amusing, ripe with possibilities, so much fun. I don't know what, and what it turned out to be is a love letter to horror fans everywhere.
Yeah,
that's
what it is.
And I think what's given Fright Night the legs that it has is that horror fans recognize themselves in it. And okay, AIP and Peter Cushing and Christopher, they all may be gone now, but every generation has new horror figures, whether it's Chucky or whether it's
right.
The guy with a
Freddy
hand, Freddy or Michael Myers or whoever.
Right.
But
was that the most fun you've ever had writing a script? Was Fright Night?
Yes.
To this day,
hands down. Yes.
It's one of those things that you were like, "Oh my God, this is brilliant! This is brilliant! I'm going to sell this."
I don't know if I thought that, but I was laughing when I wrote. I mean, every joke I told, I thought of something even funnier. You know?
Were you high?
Yeah, oh, no, I wasn't. I would know. In those days, I was as straight as as a pin. Well, I mean, you couldn't. Those were the times.
Right.
I mean, you're talking. The
80s.
Well, you're talking the late. It started in the late 70s. You're talking about Hollywood and Blow.
Oh yeah. Did you ever do Blow?
We're on public airway, for God's sake.
This is a real story. This is like your life. It doesn't mean you do it now. I've tried Blow before. I don't do it now.
Yes, I tried. What happened was everybody around me
was doing
it, and it started in the very early 70s, and by 1980 it was a snowstorm. And it was wrecking multi-million-dollar pictures.
Really?
It wrecked
people were doing it on set, all the crew.
It wrecked the Scorsese film New York, New York. It wrecked that film that Chevy Chase did about the making of The Wizard of Oz with all the little people in it. They were so wrecked on Blow they couldn't remember, they couldn't hit their marks.
Oh my God.
So that you go into a meeting at a studio, and the executive you were meeting with would put out a glass vase on the coffee table, and you sit there and discuss story in between doing lines.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
It was just part of the industry.
And everybody said, well, it's not addicting. I was working with Stuart Stern. I was writing with him when they were shooting Sybil, and Stuart wrote Sybil.
Right.
And we'd be on one side of the set, and on the other side of the flat, Joanne Woodward and Sally Fields would be rehearsing, and I would be sitting with the camera crew, and all of us were doing lines. I mean, it was that pervasive.
Wow.
But nobody had yet figured out that it ruined lives.
Right.
Nobody had yet
caused heart attacks.
No, nobody had yet.
Today it's laced with fentanyl, which has killed people instantly.
Well, in those days it would just ruin your septum. You'd need a nose operation.
Right. A lot of people probably had those.
Well, when I played the lead in The Young Lawyers, I did a scene with
Richard Pryor. Right.
Richard Pryor and I had a scene. And I mean,
oh no.
Well, I went into it. He had a trailer and he was hanging out with his
and you
gang.
Snorted with him.
No, I don't remember me doing it because I was working, but they all were. I mean, literally, you couldn't turn around for the late 70s through maybe the late 80s.
It was just part of the norm. You weren't affected by it.
Well, what happened was I started to make money so I could buy by the ounce, I think. And then what you'd say to yourself is, well, I'm gonna sell all this, and that will pay for me to have a couple of extra grams of my own without me putting out money. Of course, what happens is you end up doing the entire ounce.
Right.
And then I turned around and I wasn't writing anymore. And the last line of cocaine I ever did was the summer of 1981. And I have not touched it since 1981.
Wow.
Because I think it's a destroyer. And I watched people wreck their lives, their careers on it.
Who did you finally sell Fright Night to?
Eventually sold it to Columbia to Guy McElwain.
He believed in it. You pitched him, or did he read the script?
He read the script. Well, he read the script after he'd given the green light. That's funny too. I'm in pre-production on it, and he calls me desperately and says, "You have to change the ending." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I read the script, and at the ending you have Peter Vincent turning into a vampire. They're going to hate you if you do that. You can't. You got to end the script happily."
That's a good note.
That's a good note. And that's when I realized he was finally reading the script when I was in pre-production.
Wow.
He was a wonderful man, by the way, and I had met him previously. I'm doing Hollywood gossip, which only the insiders would, and the historians would possibly. I had become friends with a young woman named Lynn Guyler, Guyler, and her best friend was Morgan Mason. Morgan Mason was Pamela Mason's daughter. She was also James Mason's daughter.
Oh.
Okay, now nobody remembers probably who Pamela Mason was. She was the first iteration of You. She had a talk show on radio, And it was a huge sensation.
Wow.
And she was extremely sophisticated. And she had a salon every Sunday at her house. And her house was the one that had been built by the great silent comedian with the face that never showed anything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know. The general, the car, the house falling down on him, the train picking up things off the trestle by riding the train. Oh, I wish I could remember names. Anyway, she had his old house, and there were phenomenal parties there with the who's who. It was the who's who of the previous generation. Oh my goodness. I mean, that the one experience I'd had with her prior, I was in a movie, I acted in a movie called The Walk in the Spring Rain with Ingrid Bergman and Tony Quinn. Okay, and I couldn't believe it. And I was pinching myself all the time saying, oh my gosh, that's Elsa from Casablanca. I was like, you know, I was a fan.
Of course.
I mean, that's what I basically have always been.
That's what I am. I mean, you can look around, you can see all the things. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of horror. I'm a fan of cinema.
Well, you're coming from Southern Indiana up against the Ohio River.
Yeah.
And who even knows where that is?
No, the odds were definitely against me.
Well,
probably at Poughkeepsie, boy. They were against you.
Well, yeah, I'm from a small town across the river called Highland, New York. You know, nobody had anything to do with any of this, and everybody thought I was crazy.
Could you believe the success when Fright Night hit? Were you stunned?
I've never been able to believe my success ever.
Really?
Yeah, I can't. I don't know why. I've never been able to. I mean, right now, I couldn't. You had to sit there in a test audience watching Psycho 2 to realize that you'd really done something. When you heard those screams, when you heard people feeling terrible for Norman,
right?
You know, and then with Fright Night, when you hear the laughter roll over you, you hear the screams. The biggest one, I guess, was Child's Play.
I mean, how do you come up with a Chucky? I mean, did this just come to you? Were you high one night and you're like, I got this? There's this doll.
No, I've been extremely disciplined as far as narcotics or alcohol is concerned. And if anybody is out there listening who aspires to do what Michael or I have done, stay straight. Okay?
Seriously.
Because, well, you take a hit of this hydroponic today and it's instant stupidity. You know, I mean,
is.
Forget writing anything. You're lucky if you can sign your own name.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that. So no, I don't know. I mean, I can't believe I'm here at this point in my life.
I feel the same way about, you know, my career. I'm like, how did I do it? I don't know how I wasn't supposed to amount to anything. I every time I do something, I'm like, really? They're hiring me? Really? It's always that disbelief of like, you know, I think our perceptions of ourselves, like, how did this happen? It was always a dream, but dreams do come true. You know, they do come true. And sometimes you have to just say, let's just go with it. After a while, you start to say, Fright Night's a success. Psycho 2's a success. Child's Play's a success. Hey, my brain is working.
Well, I can't believe we've come here to this, got to this point. Look, you don't want to talk about all this stuff, but I mean, I just had my first novel published, Fright Night Origins.
Right.
It's the first of a series. And I can't believe it's only been a week. Today is Wednesday. So it's been a week and one day. We released it, did the press release last Tuesday, a week ago like yesterday. And I thought, well, I felt pretty good that at least we get a sampling because of the Fright Night fan base. And nobody reacted. Nobody picked it up. No other horror sites mentioned it. No social media, nothing. So I went to bed Tuesday night and terribly disappointed. I'm past the point where I'm going to put a gun to my head. But I mean, you know,
Right.
but I mean, I thought, well, I've really miscalculated. And this is after having spent months writing the book, and I wrote it with a good friend called Jack Ulrich. But there was nothing. And then I woke up Wednesday morning, and it started. And Wednesday morning, Bloody Disgusting and Joe Blow picked it up. And they got it out, which is not that it's probably nothing compared to the people that are listening to us here. But for the community, for the horror community, a couple of those sites really get the word out. And they got it out. And then all of a sudden, we started to get terrortime.shop, everybody. I'm being shameless. Go buy the book. Go buy the hardcover.
Fright Night Origins. If you're a horror fan, if you're a fan of Fright Night, you got to get this book. And where can they get this?
You can get it. You can get it at terrortime.shop, or you can get it on Amazon.
Amazon, right? That's where most people
Amazon. If you're into one click, if you want it signed, you got to buy it through terrortime.shop.
Let me ask you something. When they make a sequel to Fright Night, which they did, and then they rebooted it with Colin Farrell, since you created that and wrote that, do you still get a nice check, and do you get residuals for that, or do they give you a buyout? How does that work? Oh, you're upset.
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, I am to all of you aspiring screenwriters out there, aspiring directors and actors, they screw you financially. Hollywood rapes you.
How do they do that?
Because they have definitions. This everyone. We could be talking an hour each on every.
Of course, but in
how? Because they have a definition. The profit definition is hardly ever gross, which is the only way you ever see anything. It's net points, which means that they take all the expenses off before they get to your profit participation. And they have it set up so the expenses are such that the movie will not ever go into profits even after 35 years. Thank you very, very much, MGMUA, now Amazon, for Child's Play, which is still, how many millions of dollars is that still in the hole?
God, there's a series
how many
now.
Sequels did that
And you created it.
And no, there was the Dan Mancini wrote the first draft. He wrote an original screenplay,
Right.
And couldn't get it done in town. And I couldn't figure out how to solve it. Left it. Came back to it when I figured. I saw the clown in Poltergeist reach out from under the bed.
Oh, the scariest thing ever.
That's right, scariest thing ever. And what that is every kid has looked around as he was falling asleep at his playthings stacked up on the shelves and on the windowsill, and has said to himself, what if my toys come alive? And I knew that was a premise that would appeal worldwide. And I came back to Child's Play when I thought of the Hillside Strangler, the Brad Dourif part.
Right.
And before that, it was more of the little boy. It was called Blood Buddy. The boy made a Blood Buddy of the doll, and when he fell asleep, the doll got up and killed people like his teacher and his dentist. But you felt no sympathy for anybody. There was no bad guy.
Right.
And when I put the serial murderer inside of Chucky, that's when that damn script.
That was your idea.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And I could go on and on.
But so to this day, when they have a TV show, Child's Play, you don't get anything from that?
No, I do not.
Nothing. Zero.
No.
Any back end from the Child's Play socks that you have on? From the merch.
So, no, I did not have merch. My lawyer did the worst deal any lawyer has ever done. I will never forgive him. It's really, if I only knew now what I knew then, I never would have made the deal.
Like George Lucas, he was smart enough, or he thought ahead of time, I want merch. And nobody buys Star Wars action
They
figures.
gave it to him.
Take it.
They gave it to him because nobody bought merch. Exactly
Yeah.
right. and he somehow kept the rights.
Right.
See, this is a long.
Yeah, of course. I just
detailed-
want to, but it's painful to hear it. Not only obviously your pain, but to hear someone who was responsible, you and a couple people, for the creation of this franchise and not receiving a dime of it after is just, it's bewildering.
Well, the money was always there in the merchandise. That's why David Kirshner, who was the producer, did it, because he was a maven. He was a merchandise maven.
right.
And look at. I can't imagine how many tens, if not hundreds of millions, he's made off the merchandise.
Right.
But that's what he did it for.
Yeah.
These are only. I was just naive. I'm
Yeah.
probably still naive, but I don't
But
think
you did okay, didn't you not? I think you did pretty damn well.
for a guy who was born in Vassar Hospital in Poughkeepsie, I've done incredibly well.
Right.
I mean,
You're completely, you're a normal guy. You're just a laid back, good, humble man. Of the years I've known you, it's just like, wow, this guy's just, I can hang out with this guy. And that's how you just seem like an older brother or whatever that I could just hang with, and who has a lot of experience, very knowledgeable, very talented, and you're still going.
that's the amazing part.
That's the amazing part. It's like, I look at my mom, she's 75, and she's like, she's already fallen. She's like, she doesn't have.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff going on with her health. And I'm like, you look great. Knock on wood. Let's knock on wood.
No, I spent 5 years dying, and I came out of it.
How was that?
Pulmonary problems. Another long.
But you had heart problems.
No, I had sinus. I had consecutive sinus infections, and they discovered that my sinuses had polyps, and I had to do a sinus operation. But
You almost died from that?
Well, before that, my oximeter, which is your breathing, was something like 80, and it should be 95, 96. I couldn't get a breath. I could hardly walk across a room.
So what'd they do?
They went in and they cleaned out my sinuses. They roto-rooted my sinuses. And it did help. It's helped. And that, combine that with the tennis, I'm finally able to breathe again.
How do
and
you
to
get
move.
that tested, your sinuses? Like if it's,
They shove a camera up there.
and they could tell if you got all
Christ,
this shit.
You can see them.
And it changed your life when you figured that out and corrected it.
Well, yeah. Before that, what happened was I was sicker and sicker, and I stopped working because I didn't want to take anything you do, you have to have insurance for, and they send a doctor to your house, and all he had to do was listen to my lungs, put the stethoscope to my back, and it sounded like the rumble of an earthquake.
Right.
In other words, I was uninsurable.
Right.
And I turned everything down because I didn't want anybody to know. It had its own kind of insanity.
Wow.
That went with it, and I was afraid to let anybody know. And
So
if
you're risking your own life because you didn't want to seem like
Yeah,
somebody would hire you.
insane, isn't it?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Health is wealth.
Well, that's what your mother always said. As long as you have your health, you're wealthy. And
That's
there's truth. There's truth to that.
true. There's
Truth to that.
100% truth to that.
You know, and the do you have a caregiver with your mother?
She has someone. She has my stepdad, and she's going to a lot of doctors. He has insurance, so we'll see what happens. I mean, she's okay. I don't know. I don't know. I just know when she was here, I was
She's
worried
back in
about her.
Indiana?
She's in Indiana, yeah. So she's, we're figuring it out. But
It's called practicing medicine.
yeah,
That's one of the problems. If you have something that is routine, that's easily diagnosable, you're okay. And they can do miracles with heart today.
of course.
Not so much cancer.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the shit.
they
You
kill you.
can't figure that out.
And
It's-
if you don't have something that is easily diagnosable, you're in for what I went through, which is years of going from one doctor to another and trying this and trying that and everything else.
I know how that goes.
Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with any depression in your life? Were you one of those guys one of those people who were attached to a project, and when it doesn't succeed like you thought, do you kind of go into a hole?
Yes.
And what would you do in the beginning? Like, what did you learn from that? Was it something that you it kept happening, and how did you correct that, or how did you learn to deal with it in a healthy way?
I think that creating a successful piece of art, i.e. a movie, there's a lot of luck involved. People don't like to hear that, but it is. Making a movie is such a group effort, and it requires the skill and talent of so many people that you have to be blessed. The actors have to have some kind of connection, some kind of charisma. The cinematographer has to arrive and not fall asleep while they're setting up a shot. The set decorator can't be behind the flats doing something he shouldn't. He's got to be dressing the set really well. And you know, it really
on and on. If everything doesn't come,
yep.
You know, the quality. I mean, if something's missing, it could create something that, you know, something will fail because of that.
I had extraordinary luck on Fright Night. And since it was the first movie that I directed, I didn't know it was atypical. That was a great cast. Mm-hmm. It's a great cinematographer. Great. It was. I had John DeCure Sr. doing the production design. I had Richard Edlin. I had Steve Johnson. I had Randy Cook doing the effects. I inherited the Ghostbusters crew.
Wow.
I inherited for Fright Night this little movie that nobody paid attention to, that everybody thought was a toss away, that they gave me because there was one slot left in the distribution and they didn't expect anything, that I got not probably because of the success of the screenplays, but because Guy McElwain knew me from Sunday salons at Pamela Mason's house. He never said that to me, but wow. I suspect.
Did you get nervous when you were your first directorial debut? Were you constantly under a lot of stress and couldn't sleep and was worried you're going to get fired and all these things? Was this happening, or were you confident and comfortable and hunky-dory?
That happened to me on Child's Play. It didn't happen to me on Fright Night.
So what happened on Child's Play? You just were really stressed out?
Well, I was really stressed out because you try to make a damn doll work. You know, with the way I wrote that script, the things that I had that doll doing. Oh, yeah. Well, that was a huge laff.
That was the biggest laugh ever.
But I mean, the doll, I mean, I nobody had ever tried to make a puppet movie of that specificity and complexity. And there were a ton of shots that didn't work. There were a ton of things where, you know, I'd written for the doll to do this or that, and they couldn't do it. And then I had to figure out, well, put them behind furniture and run them along behind furniture so we don't see the puppeteer or whatever it was, you know. But it was unending. And I was terrified we were going to show the film and the audience was going to laugh at the doll. I was afraid they wouldn't believe Chucky could be murderous and be really, and I was afraid they wouldn't believe Chucky could kill you.
Wow. And those are huge fears because that's the entire movie.
That's the entire movie. And I did not really know until the first preview. And the first preview, all of the Chucky set pieces, meaning what they would now call the kills, but all of the things I used to build suspense, you could see that it was all working. You could see the audience had fallen in love with Chucky. And it was the first one out. And after that, the previews were a matter of tightening the film.
Did you cast Brad Dourif as the voice of Chucky after you were completed filming?
No, I wrote it for him.
You wrote it for him.
He had been the bad guy in the movie that I'd done previous to that nobody ever asked me about, called Fatal Beauty with Whoopi Goldberg.
But who was doing the voice during the filming?
I was.
So you were going, fuck you, and all those things. You were doing the voice.
Oh, yeah.
I bet that was kind of fun.
Oh, it was. It was a lot of fun. I mean, the only thing that's kept me at all sane is I've tried to rehearse every movie that I've done.
I think that's huge.
And I had a solid 2 weeks on Fright Night, and I was dealing with a really professional cast.
Oh, Roddy McDowall, Chris Sarandon.
Well, Roddy McDowall and Chris both supported me.
Yeah.
And that carried the other actors, including Stephen Jeffries. Hey, Stephen.
Yeah.
But I mean, I took and I ran that entire movie as a play on a soundstage, taping out the rooms, how big they were and everything else. And I had Colin Higgins come down to watch it. Do you know who Colin is? Colin wrote a few things like Silver Streck.
Yeah.
9 to 5.
Sure.
Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Colin was some kind of genius. He died early.
So you wanted him to be on set?
He came down and looked at it and told me whether or not it worked. He had also read the screenplay and gave me a few jokes. He could do comedies, is what Colin. He gave me the lines the mother had. You want a tranquilizer? And it was a big laugh, whatever it was then. Sonoma, I forget what it was. But I woke up from a nightmare, and there I was naked in a white sail. That was
right.
Anyway, so Colin came down, and Colin was extremely supportive, and supportive of the cast from what he'd seen.
Yeah.
And Colin was at that moment in time one of the top directors in Hollywood.
Wow.
So he was a huge, huge help, and God bless Colin.
This is called ShitTalkin with Tom Holland. This is my top tier patrons who get to ask questions. If you want to become a patron and support the podcast, I love you. I'll message you after. Go to patreon.com/inside of you. This is from Raj. This is fast talk. This is rapid fire. So you answer rapid fire fast.
Okay.
Raj, tell me about a time you struggled to get the right performance out of an actor. How did you work through it?
I failed sometimes. I don't want to name names. Stephen Jeffries. Well, I just had to point him and he went. I had terrible trouble on The Temp, another film that nobody asked me about.
What about Thinner?
No, Thinner was a great experience and a terrible experience. I had a wonderful actor there, Robert John Burke, and then I did rehearse that, and I thought everybody was just terrific, and that was a very difficult piece. It's a character piece.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Thinner.
It wasn't too disturbing for you?
No, I liked it. It was dark. It was weird. I remember seeing it in the theater. But when you have trouble with an actor, do you ever raise your voice? Do you ever get mad? Do you ever lose your shit? Have you ever lost your shit, Tom Holland?
Yeah, a number of times, but I never lost it. I don't think I ever lost it with actors.
Have you ever said, God damn it, I told you to do that. Move to...
Yeah. Well, what happens is as the movie proceeds, as you get closer and closer to the end, the pressure from the studio builds on you to finish it, to cut, to save money. I don't think I've ever been involved in a movie where they weren't knocking on the door in the last 2 or 3 weeks saying, can we cut this? Can we cut that? And it's just horrible.
It's always stressful. You got that guy on set who's like, we got to go. You're going to miss it. You can't do that. We got to cut this.
And you're always ending up at magic hour with 3 shots left that you need and time for only 1.
Always. That's always.
Always.
99 more. Do you have any recurring nightmares? If so, what do you think they stem from?
Growing up. Oh, I can't answer that.
Did you have trouble
No, I mean I love my parents dearly, but yes, but I mean I'm a little sensitive about how revealing personally I should be under these circumstances. We're having a private conversation here, but 6 million people or whatever may be listening in.
I wish 6 million people were listening, but this is great. This is what people want to hear. They want to hear the real you. This is like, anyway, Danny, awesome guest. Love Tom Holland. Would love to hear Tom's favorite story about working with the legendary Roddy McDowall. He's fantastic in Fright Night, as we all know. So a quick story that you remember at Roddy.
Quick story. I cast Roddy because of the performance in Class of '84. If you look at that, he's terrific.
Amazing.
And Roddy came in to meet with me, and Roddy said, he's the lion, isn't he? I said, the lion? He said, yes, from Wizard of Oz. He's the lion without a heart.
He is.
He has no courage, and he finds his courage. And that's my image.
That's brilliant.
And I thought, that's brilliant. You have the part. Yes.
Holy shit. I don't have any courage. But he kind of was. Peter was like that. Vincent.
Well,
Fright Night.
he has the hero's journey.
He does. He has to become strong. He starts out weak and just like a facade.
Yes, and that's unusual. Usually that would be given to Charlie, but Charlie's the motor that makes it go. And if you want all the answers to why this is, buy Fright Night Origins, because I explained
the novel. Get it. You guys are going to love it.
Yeah.
Little Lisa, what's the scariest thing you've ever done and why'd you do it?
The scariest thing I've ever done in making a movie?
Anything.
I put the little person in Child's Play. I put a body harness on him, and I had him walk a ledge 5 or 6 floors above ground for the camera with him in a full Chucky costume, which means he couldn't see that well. When he goes and he's getting to the little boy inside the insane asylum.
Yeah.
I mean, so I've done.
So you were scared at that moment, like something's going to happen.
Yeah, but I needed the shot. But see, that's the craziness of directing. When you're into directing and you're really into it, if you think you need a shot, you'll do anything for the shot.
Yes.
I mean, there is a ruthlessness involved that one would never admit to for fear of being unsympathetic.
Everything for the art. What do you do about your? We're wrapping this up, but what do you do when you're depressed? When we talked about that briefly, but like everything rides on this and it fails in your eyes and you get depressed. What gets you out of depression?
Time. A lot of time. If you were to look at my career, you can find long periods when I was down, and that was because I was turning everything down.
What did you turn down? What were the biggest things you turned down?
RoboCop.
The original?
Mistake. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that. I can't.
But you've turned down a lot of stuff.
I turned down a whole lot of stuff.
Did you ever turn down something because it was fear based? Like, I can't do this. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, if the technical knowledge that was required ran beyond my expertise, I was very nervous because I would have to depend on somebody else, the effects supervisor, telling me whether or not it was possible. And the more you get into film, the less you trust people as far as that's concerned.
Right. What do you
I love actors, by the way.
Yeah, I know that. You can tell you love actors, and they love you. I've talked to Chris Sarandon, who just admires you so much, and so many actors that just love you, adore you. Our good friend Nick Peterson.
I love Nick.
Nick loves you. He loves you. Do you ever tell your age? I mean, you can look online, see how old you are.
Yeah, correct. Well, I became well known so early I didn't lie about my age. I turned 79 last July.
79. We're born on the same day. July 11th.
Are you really?
You and I have the same birthday.
No kidding.
Yes, we do.
There's got to be something in that.
There's a connection.
That's
man.
amazing.
We're both sensitive. We're both very sensitive. But at 79, most people, when they're 70, 60s, they'd be like, I'm good. I made a fortune. I have a big house. I created these huge franchises. I've got money. I don't need to worry. I'm not doing anything else. I'm retiring. At 79, you just wrote a novel, Fright Night Origins, that's out. You guys need to get. Do you think that you've got another movie in you? Do you think you want to direct again or write another screenplay? Or do you feel the need that you have to? And if you do, are you doing it for you? Or are you doing it to prove yourself? Because you don't need to prove yourself. But what is it? What gets you going? Right
now, I am really pissed at the accounting in Hollywood. I really hate the majors. They all cheat you blind. I have spent a lot of money with lawyers in the last 2 or 3 years with forensic accounting on Fright Night and Child's Play. And I'm now on the queue. There's so many people suing the Hollywood studios for their accounting that you have to wait 2, 3, 4 years in line before they'll take the case in court.
Jesus.
I mean, I look at Child's Play, and I really forget the numbers now, But what they do is they charge you such a high interest rate, like 17% on whatever the unpaid amount of the debt is, so that they set it up so that the interest rate on the deficit is always growing larger and is larger than the profits coming in. It is worked out.
Right.
So as time goes along, the film Fright Night, Child's Play, Psycho 2 falls deeper into debt. Now, I figure I have made billions for Hollywood, none of which, not even a taste of which, they passed on. I'll tell you a very brief story about Tony Perkins. Talking to Tony after Child's Play, after
Psycho 2.
Psycho 2 had become a huge international hit. It was going for something like $100 million worldwide. And Tony called and said, I have points. Where are my profit statements? And they told him they didn't have any profits. We had done that movie for 4.9, for a little bit less than $5
They
million.
made $34 million first weekend.
Yeah. And we'd done it for a little less than $5 million. That was the actual real cost. And Universal was saying they were still in debt. And so Tony said, I'm going to sue you. And Universal, and I will not say the executive who said this, said, you do that and you will never work in Hollywood again. To Tony Perkins, he's saying this. And so Tony said, he says back, yeah, sure, until the next time you need me. Okay, Tony directed Psycho 3, and he directed it because he was so pissed off at Universal trying to short him on his profit participation. And also when he did that, and they had to pay Tony his profit participation, I got $43,000 in deferred salary. And that's Hollywood for you. If you can't sue, you're never going to see anything on the back end.
That's true. Pisses me off. I wanted to sue someone once.
Well, but no, but if you'd ever had a piece of any of those beyond the residuals, if you'd ever had a piece of Superman, you'd be in this too.
This has been incredible. I love talking to you. Yes, you can come back. Of course. There's so much else to talk about. You have so many stories.
Okay, a real quick one.
All right.
My father was a diagnosed manic depressive on lithium maintenance for the last 13 years of his life, and he was institutionalized once. End of it. Okay, thank you very much.
hang on. Wow, you are an extraordinary man. You're a super talented guy. I love you. I'm going to come over and play tennis with you. I'm going to visit the wifey. I miss her. And this has been a real treat. Guys, buy the book, Fright Night Origins. This is a legend that's here with us today.
And thank you all very much for listening. And I can't tell you how terrific Michael Rosenbaum is,
Wow.
both as an actor and even more importantly, as a human being.
You hear that, guys? Coming from a legend. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for allowing me to be inside of you today.
Thank you.
I love it. I love hearing about like how he's not getting money for like all the sequels of Child's Play.
Yeah, it
and,
sucks.
Like, I don't like it. I think it's
No.
just horrid. And you can tell that he's obviously a little upset. It's like you put your heart and soul into something, and then your contract says, oh, you don't get anything. And then I guess that's his lawyer's fault.
Oh, you wouldn't be able, if you were listening, you wouldn't be able to know, but he was wearing Chucky socks.
Chucky socks.
He was wearing Chucky socks, and I asked him like if he was getting residuals on the merch, and it doesn't
He
sound
was
like it.
No. I love you, Tom. Thanks for being here. Go check out his new book. Watch Fright Night if you've never seen it. Child's Play. I don't know how you've not seen that one. But thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Right now, it's the top tier patrons, the shout outs. Become a patron today. Join us and support us. I couldn't do it without you. Patreon.com/inside you. Here are the names, top tiers: Nancy D, Leah S, Sarah V, Little Lisa, Yukiko, Jill E, Brian H, Nico P, Robert B, Jason W, Sophie M, Kristen K, Raj C, Joshua D, Jennifer N, Stacy L, Jamal F, Janelle B, Kimberly E, Mike E.
Changing glasses so we can read.
Yes.
Please hold.
Changing glasses. I can read. Oh, there we go. El Don
What?
Supremo. 99 more. Santiago M, Chad W, Liam P, Janine R, Maya P, Maddie S, Belinda N, Chris H, Dave H, Sheila G, Brad D, Ray H, Tabitha T, Tom N, Liliana A, Talia M, Betsy D, Chad L, Marion, Dan N, Big Stevie W, Angel M, Rhiannon,
C.
Corey K, Dev Nexton, Michelle A, Jeremy C, Andy T, Gavin Ader, David C, John B, Brandy D, Camille S, Joey M, Eugene, and Leah, Nikki G, Corey, Katie B, Patricia, Heather L, Megan T, Mel S, Orlando C, Caroline R, Christine S, Sarah S, Eric H, Shane R, MLR, Jeremy V, Andrew M, Zedoichi 77, Oracle, Chris R, Karina N, Michelle D, Amanda R, Jen B, Kevin E, Stephanie K, Lena 82, Jor-El, and Billy S. Couldn't do it without you guys. It's been a real treat being here with you every week, week in, week out. Cumulus picked up the show for another year, so we'll go for another year at least. And, that might be it, but it just depends. We need more listeners. We need more, patrons. Here we go. Thanks for allowing me to be inside of each and every one of you from the Hollywood Hills in California. I'm Michael Rosenbaum.
I'm Ryan Tejas, and thank you for listening, watching.
Thank you so much. And of course, be good to yourselves, will you? Just be good to yourselves. All right. We'll see you.